Hey, third graders, it's Elana. I'm going to read a chapter of The Wise Men of Helm and Their Merry Tales. I'm going to start with how the Helmites bought a barrel of justice. I think we read half of this in class, so I'm just going to read the whole thing, and I hope you enjoy. How the Helmites bought a barrel of justice. Thus business came to Helm, thieves and all, and with it the rich got richer and the poor got worries. And as always happens, the poor came to be jealous of the rich, and the rich came to fear the poor. That was the way of the world, and even Helm was no exception. In the days when Helmites were building watermills on mountain tops, before they went into business, the people were neither rich nor poor. But now there were those who lived in fine brick houses and clothed themselves in expensive garments made of rare cloths. Even their little children wore raiment of the best wool interwoven with silk thread and trimmed with velvet. They fared on the finest foods, on raisin-studded challah and honey tarts yellow as saffron, stuffed young hens and roast duck dripping with gravy. When it came to this, the rich in Helm were no different from the rich all over the world. And the same with the poor. They suffered and struggled as the poor do everywhere. If once in 7 years a poor Helmite could buy a scrap of clothing for himself, what would it be made of but cotton? The women made their own dresses of cheap calico and gingham, while the children never saw anything but made-overs from father's overcoat and hand-me-downs from big sister's petticoats. The poor had to be content with potatoes flavored with herring water to fill their stomachs. Once in a great while they would allow themselves the luxury of buying the feet and heads of hens that had been ordered by the rich. Even in the synagogue, the well-to-do would be seated in their own pews at the east wall near the Holy Ark, while the poor would stand squeezed together behind the pulpit, near the stove and alongside the wash basin. But the poor were so many in Helm that they jammed the little space allowed them, leaving no room for benches to rest on when they became weary. Finally, one hot summer Sabbath, when the heat had become unbearable, and the crush and stuffiness behind the pulpit could no longer be endured, the long-suffering poor stopped the services and appealed to the rabbi. "We claim our ancient right to interrupt the services and to prevent the Torah reading until our wrongs are righted." "What are your wrongs, my people?" asked the rabbi gently. "Rabbi, why do the rich live on milk and honey while we live on air?" cried a cobbler lad. And before the rabbi could answer came another cry from the tailor's apprentice. "Why do the rich wear silks and stuff themselves with choice meats, while we go around in cotton rags and begrudge ourselves even a little lung and soup cooked from bones?" Then came a thunderous shout from the midst of the crowd. "O Rabbi, there is no justice in Helm!" Now all the throng took up the cry, "There is no justice in Helm!" The rabbi took a pinch of snuff, sneezed twice, then once more for good measure, and thought for 7 days and 7 nights, for this was the weightiest problem that had ever been set before him. Then, slowly and with great deliberation, came his reply. "True, there is no justice in Helm, but it must be somewheres, since the Holy Torah guarantees it. It must have slipped away to some other place while we were busy doing business. Therefore, let us send 2 messengers out into the world to buy some justice and bring it back to Helm, enough for rich and poor alike." And so the 2 messengers set out on their journey into the world to buy some justice. Wherever they went, they would ask, "Good people, can you tell us where to buy a little justice?" Everywhere they were given the same reply. "No use looking. We too lack that little item. If we knew where to get some, we'd sell the shirts off our backs." The Helmites rode on. They rode and rode until they came to Warsaw. They walked through the crowded streets of the city and saw great markets with fancy shop windows, stores crammed with all kinds of wares, but not a sign of justice anywhere. They walked on, continuing their search, until they came to an immense store, which was bigger than all the stores in Helm put together. The two Helmites gazed open-mouthed at the wonderful displays in the shop windows, and one said to the other, "In such a great trading house, where there are so many different kinds of merchandise, there must be at least a little bit of justice around, even if it's been stuck away on a back shelf somewhere." A pair of Warsaw rogues caught sight of the two country yokels staring into the window. Being on the lookout for some easy money and sensing that here was likely prey, the clever rascals went up to the Helmites and said, "Friends, how would you like to get a good bargain? We can sell you the Vistula Bridge cheap, or if you can't use the bridge, we can sell you the Saxony Gardens, or perhaps you're interested in the Warsaw Synagogue. We can sell you anything your heart desires." Replied the Helmites, "No, good folks, we don't want to buy the Vistula Bridge or the Saxony Gardens, and why would we need the Warsaw Synagogue when we have a fine new synagogue of our own in Helm?" "Oh, so you're Helmites!" exclaimed the scoundrels as their greedy eyes began to gleam. "Aye, we're Helmites," replied the two messengers, pleased with the new respect the men seemed to show them. "And what is it that such two wise men from Helm seek in Warsaw?" politely asked the rogues. "Justice is what we seek," responded the Helmites. "We have traveled far and wide and cannot find a crumb of justice to save our lives." Replied the others, "Look no further, Helmites. Your search is ended. We'll sell you as much justice as you want." The messengers from Helm rejoiced and asked eagerly, "Can you sell us a whole barrelful?" "Well," said the others with feigned hesitation, "justice, as you know, is an expensive article. But if you can afford it, we'll manage to get you a barrelful." The Helmites were in seventh heaven. "Will 2,000 gold pieces be enough?" "Is that all you have?" asked the Warsaw thieves, trying to conceal their glee. "That's every kopeck," replied the Helmites. "Then it will have to do. After all, we can't let you go back to Helm without justice," said the swindlers. "Come with us." A few hours later, the knaves delivered a full barrel of justice, nailed tight and sealed all around, to the messengers from Helm, who almost fell over themselves with excitement as they handed over the 2,000 gold pieces. At last, their quest was ended. Before the rogues departed, they warned the Helmites, "Make sure not to jostle the barrel on the way. The cover might fly off and some of the treasure might be spilled. You know how hard it is to get justice these days." "You don't have to tell us that," replied the Helmites. "Why, we'll carry it as though it were a steaming bowl of delicious chicken soup." The Helmites thanked their benefactors, said goodbye, and parted. There was great rejoicing in Helm. The messengers had just returned with a whole barrelful of justice. Imagine a whole barrelful! Now all would be well in Helm again, with justice enough for rich and poor. After elaborate ceremonies in the town square, to Model the mayor went the honor of opening the precious barrel. With bated breath, he broke the seals, loosened the nails, and pried open the cover, while all of Helm crowded around, eager to see what the justice of the world looked like. As the cover was reverently lifted, what was their amazement when an odor assailed their nostrils, the foul odor of rotten fish. Springing back in horror, Mottle cried, "Alas! The justice is spoiled!" Then Gimple too stuck his nose into the barrel, took one whiff, and jumped back, crying dismally, "Aye, the justice of the world smells bad!" And now a moaning and a wailing arose over the square as the grief-stricken Helmites repeated to one another, "Alas! The justice is spoiled. The justice of the world smells bad. Woe is us! What shall we do?" Whereupon Gimple, richest man in Helm, exclaimed, "Take heed, O ye Helmites, who complain of the justice in Helm." And pointing pompously to the barrel, he bellowed, "That's the kind of justice you have in the rest of the world." The throng stood there, bewildered, but the young cobbler lad sprang up to answer Gimple. "Poor people of Helm, listen to me. If there is no justice in Helm, and even the justice of the world has been spoiled, then it doesn't matter what we do. We can do whatever we want." The tailor's apprentice took up the cry, "The rich are few, we are many. No one can stop us." "Let's break into the shops," then shouted the cobbler lad, "and take whatever we need." "Aye, aye," clamored the poor people of Helm excitedly. "We'll take the finest cloths," someone cried, "and the choicest meats for Shabbat," from another. "And in the synagogue, let's take the pews by the east wall. Let the rich stand behind the pulpit near the stove and alongside the wash basin." Hearing the tumult, the rich became alarmed. They called a town meeting immediately and invited the cobbler lad to sit at the right of the mayor and the tailor's apprentice at his left, in the places of honor. There was talking and thinking and thinking and talking for 7 days and 7 nights, and at last they came to a brilliant compromise. From this day on, whenever an ox is slaughtered, let the entire animal consist only of the choicest parts, such as breast and flank. Let all parts be alike. Then there will be no difference which part one buys. Likewise, let it be known to all that the entire synagogue is the east wall and center pews. Then, to be sure, there will be no difference where a person sits. Likewise, let there be no difference between satin and gingham, silk, cotton, and wool. Let all stuffs be alike. Then it will make no difference what sort of clothing one wears. But since it happens that the rich may be foolish enough to wish to pay more in order to sit nowhere else but at the former east wall, likewise, since they may desire to pay more for the former breast and flank meats, and for former silks and velvets and wools, then let them be welcome to their foolishness. And so it was done. All was peaceful again in Helm. Both the rich and the poor were content. As for the rich, everything was the same. Yet for the poor, times had changed. They would go about saying, "Helm has certainly improved. The entire synagogue now is the east wall and the center pews. The whole ox is breast and flank meat. All clothing is satin, silk, and wool. We poor live on the fat of the land. Gone are the old, unhappy days when the rich lived on milk and honey and we lived on air. Now all are equal." Aye, it was peaceful again in Helm. Times had changed, and everything was of old. I hope you enjoyed that chapter. Have a great week, third graders.